So, hello and welcome for today's session. So I hope that today we can actually wrap up the scene and finish everything off. So we're good to go to look at new scenes with the next sessions that I'm about to do. So as always, before we get things started, everything that I'm going to say, it's based on my experience and my opinions as well. So please don't take everything for granted or set in stone. There's very often so many ways of doing things that I probably do some things in a way you maybe wouldn't, but it doesn't really matter because there are so many ways to roam. So yeah, with that said, let's get it started. So just to pick up where we left off, last time we prepared everything for Lightmass with this scene. We just did the cleanup pass. We set up all the components to work nicely with each other. So I'm just here in Photoshop right now. That is what the scene looked like before we started working on it. And the important thing is I really did only a cleanup and a setup pass. So I basically did nothing that really is oh, let's try and make it look like this or anything like that. So it was just I rotated the light because I liked the sun position a little bit better. It gave me a bit more interest. However, besides that, it was really just cleaning up the base. And I want to stress that because let's look at the difference. So this is what we got in the beginning, and that's what we had in the end. And if I'm just gonna switch back and forth here between those two, I think that you would agree with me that the new version looks a lot better, even though we actually didn't really do that much. We didn't really do any lighting. We just built a clean base to start from. And that is actually one of the most important parts of what I believe what my message is for all these tutorials, or let's call it workshops or whatever, is that you can do all sorts of crazy things, and that's totally fine. However, I think it is tremendously important to really start with a clean base setup, because if you start, building a tower on a muddy ground, you're not going to have a fun time building that tower. So it might be better to build a base first where you can build the tower on, and that base is actually a good and very solid base that doesn't cause you a lot of issues down the line. So that's something that I really want to stress, and that is in my opinion, really the most important thing. Do a clean base, follow the rules kind of on how to set stuff up in a nice and clean way, and then go crazy on it. Of course, depending on what you're working on. So yeah, again, that's where we started. That's where we are right now. So just gonna quickly hop into Unreal. I actually did some weird tests here, just quickly, because now with 4.15 everyone is going crazy because of the new tone mapper and what it does to emissive. And I was just fooling around a little bit with that because I thought hey, let's just try a couple of things out. In my opinion, to the people listening to this, I don't think that the Filmic Tone Mapper is a bad choice, and I actually think that what it's doing to emissive in the colors is correct if, and that's the important thing, you're gonna output HDR. The problem is we're not outputting HDR because like no one has an HDR computer monitor, and HDR TVs are pretty expensive if you want a good one. So the problem, I believe, comes from the fact that you basically need two kind of tone mappers when you work in HDR. First, you need the HDR tone mapper, which is the filmic tone mapper, the AC standard, like tweaked towards HDR that we have now. But you also need a display mapper, kind of, which is kind of like a second tone mapper that converts the stuff to SDR range, and kind of like imagine when you download HDR skies, like sometimes the skies are super blown out and you can't really see what's going on there. That's because it's an HDR format. And if you would look at the sky on an HDR monitor, you would see all the details. However, on SDR, you would just get white blown out stuff. So what you can do is you can actually apply a soft clip curve on those highlights, and then you can see the image like if you, it would basically look like if you would take the same picture of the sky but without HDR photography of like getting all the different exposures in. And I think that is where actually the whole problem comes from in Unreal. I mean, I don't know, but that's an assumption that I have. I think they don't have a proper display mapper that translates the new values that are above 1 with a soft clip into SDR range, so we can still see the colors that we would see on an HDR screen. So yeah, that's why I had some weird stuff open, and I think it's just interesting to think and talk about these things. So first thing that we can notice, the scene looks quite flat, and that is still because I don't have the tone mapper set per default. Okay. So last time we just did like this final bake, and we unlocked the exposure to finish that scene kind of off, to have like a nice base for calling it a day. So we still have some things to do. So for example, we obviously need to get rid of the emissive, because we just don't need that anymore. And we also, let me quickly check the reference. We just need to make sure that those windows look like the real windows. I didn't do that last time because they were just like how they were on the old thing. So let's have a look at this again. And I'm not entirely sure. It could actually be that there's a second material. Let's just try that. Okay, we should not do this. I think I will just quickly modify that material to make it opaque, so we don't get like you can see we can look through it because there's nothing behind now. It's not so bad, but let's just turn this into an opaque material. We got a bit of roughness stuff going on here, that's okay. This is interesting, like these things, they don't really work that way anymore. So we can actually like kill the spec, and we can just set metallic to 1, and we set this to a different color here, and now you can see we kind of like get this perfect mirror. And I think we're just going to use that for the glass right now. Or maybe not. Let's look at this again. I wonder why we have that stuff in here. That makes not so much sense to me. But let's see. Maybe we can actually find another texture that we could use. Something fairly random noisy looking. So, I mean, I generally like just using some stuff like this, for example. I think that could work fairly well. Let's check this out. Yeah, that's not so bad. However, we need to control this a little bit more. So we just take a lerp node, we put this into the alpha, and we put that in here. And now we want to decrease the white values. So basically every dark stuff is input A and all the white stuff is input B. So if we go in here and we just do like 0.5, we should get something much better. And if we actually minus this, we should be able to get down with the other value to really become this like mirror reflection. It's, I mean, normally it's better to do this with the textures themselves, but I think for now that should be fine. Let's just see what we get from this. And we might want to still turn the color darker. Yeah. And I also want to decrease this one more, because I really just want some subtle variation, kind of like this. Yeah. Now let's see, let's turn this into a parameter. Alright. I think that's fairly okay for now, because that's not really the main focus of this. So yeah, let's do this. Another thing that I like to do is add some additional reflection capture actors for this. One thing that is fairly important to know for you guys is these reflection capture actors, per default, they have like this huge radius. You should always start out way smaller. And the important thing is when they overlap, their cost increases quite a bit. Because like what they are, they're kind of like having a similar cost like light sources. So what's that? Yeah. So if you if they overlap too much, you will actually make them quite a lot more expensive. And they are like little. They're almost like deferred lights being applied. And with light, it's the same thing. Like deferred lighting, yes, it's cheaper. However, the more you overlap them, the more expensive it becomes as well. So, and what I normally do is like I really push them as much as I can, like close to the surface, to get like an almost accurate reflection, as you can see here now, that like I'm really trying to make this work. So you can see how we reflect this little entrance area here as well. And actually the smaller we make this capture radius, it also becomes more accurate of a reflection, because we only want to affect that surface. So I'm just gonna drag another one over. So the important thing is that the center point here is above the surface. Cool. Gonna drag this one over here. That's interesting. Those windows seem like they're not on the same height. But yeah, that's not so important. Zip. So you could see here, this is like, we just get the reflection from the sky with like, oh no, actually this is the reflection from the old big capture that has not yet been updated because I didn't move it. So that's the thing, like if you have a big capture, and for example that big capture still had the information of the emissive windows in there, what you can do is you can click on build and you can say update reflection capture actors. And you just saw how that like slightly affected the scene. And if I would move this one away now, you wouldn't get this strong emissive effect anymore from this main capture actor that was somewhere around here. But yeah. Okay. So you can really see, like, if we do this, like, you can see it just takes like some data from that other capture actor, and like some stuff is weird and it's not really localized. So that's why we're doing these things here of like really trying to get this all nice together and as accurate as possible. And also one interesting thing, the hierarchy of those captures. Like, you can't really set priorities or anything like that, at least not that I'm aware of. But how it works is basically smaller captures override larger ones. So right now, for example, I think we could need some more pop here. So it would actually maybe be really cool to just like duplicate this capture and move it up a bit. And then let's try 500. So now you can see this is the area of the capture that we affect. However, if I turn it on and off, do you see how it's only affecting the wood surface here? And that is because those captures are smaller, so they have higher priority for that window than the bigger one, which is kind of like doing these things here, as you can see. Like, do you see how like this does look really disconnected now, and we get this white glow from below and stuff like that. But actually we have all this green, so this part which is metal, it should get actually the green information. So zack, same down here. And this is really, really important because as you can see, it makes a huge difference. I'm wondering if there is... This is the bad capture here. It's the one that's just like underground. And we'll just move this one up and somewhere here. So this is kind of like our main capture actor right now. And now when we go to the reflections view mode, it's still not working. Okay. So this looks to me like this is a bug in 4.14 that the reflection view modes are broken, because now I'm using light mass and it's still not working. So that is weird. Very, very weird. Anyways. Okay, so we got all this stuff set up. So now what we can actually do is we have multiple options, right? I mean, first we should actually at some point rebake to get all that stuff fixed, but I will try to make quite a high quality bake in the end. So my idea was to just like build as much as I can right now without doing the rebake, and then we can do a better quality bake where I will pause the video and then, you know. So one thing that I was thinking is grass is always tricky with light mass because you have to you have three options. Option one is you just let's have a look quickly. You just go into your grass mesh and whoops, come on. So what you can do is if we look at the UVs, so these are the UVs for the grass. That is not too bad at all. However, like it's fairly inefficient to really bake that out because you need a fairly high light map resolution to make that work, and it's quite a waste of light map space, which is the reason I believe if we go to lighting only, you can see it kind of looks okay-ish, but it doesn't really blend well with the stuff that we have here. And I think right now all this grass stuff is set to dynamic, which is paint tool, which is like if we look here, you can see that, like for example, the trees here being in the shadow, they look a lot different from the grass being in the shadow here, and so they don't really match up. And what I will do now is, like, this is the main grass here. Yeah, wait a second. Okay, I actually thought that the other grass looked better. But anyways, so if we look at the foliage type here, you can see it's set to be movable. So that means that the grass right now is actually rendered as a dynamic entity. And it can cause these weird things that we see here, that like it kind of like doesn't really pick up the proper colors in the shadows. Also, I think that we have a slight problem with the grass texture because we have this like white stuff in here. And I think this causes some troubles with subsurface and so on. So it's not really working that well. I wonder what happens if we just quickly... Oh no. No. Doesn't look so much better. Yeah, grass and light mass is always tricky. I think we also have like this other grass, this brown grass. Which is, okay, it's scaled super small. Yep. Well, grass actually, yeah, it needs a lot of tweaking, and it's not super easy to get it right with light mass. But I think this still looks a bit better. How does it look if we look at our base color? Okay, so that stuff matches. That's still okay. So yeah, there's two options what you can do. You can either like do this, and then it's super important. Let's have a look at this, because I was talking about the volume lighting samples last time. Remember when I said that we need a light mass importance volume? So now if I turn on these volume lighting samples, you can see all these little dots here, right? And those dots, you can see here where they are in the shadow, that they are dark, and where they are like in the sun, they're like much brighter. And these sample points, basically, they are used for lighting dynamic actors. So right now, the grass is basically sampling the indirect lighting data for the shadows from these sample points here. The big problem with this is, and there's actually a bug filed for this, so Epic is like working on some solutions to fix this. The big problem with this is, wait a second, why can't I click it? The big problem is that Foliage uses clusters and stuff like that. So, I'm still the Foliage tool. Okay, and the clusters, they basically, how do I explain that? Like, every single grass mesh is not able to get an accurate sample all the time because they get clustered. So they have like, the cluster has kind of like a center point, and basically they sample the lighting information from that cluster sample point. And that is actually fairly tricky, because often you have like the grass being in one situation but not getting the correct lighting information for that spot actually. So this is something it's a little bit tricky. Then you can do the grass as static, as I just said, so you can bake the light maps. However, there's actually something that I think that's a lot cooler, and we could potentially try that out quickly. Let's try. I'm gonna save everything so we don't fuck it up. And that is basically, we can use the landscape grass, because we have like this dirt road painted here, so we shouldn't get any grass in here. And the landscape grass, it spawns on a layer that you specify, and then it just spawns grass on that layer. So while you paint that layer, it continues to spawn the grass on that layer. And the cool thing is, if you use that, you can say in the grass type, pick up the lighting information from the terrain. And that is fairly efficient. So what we're going to do now is just going to be crazy here and delete the grass. So that's what it looks right now. And now what we're gonna do is we gonna check this. And now what I'm gonna do is I go to miscellaneous, I think it was, and then we can do landscape grass type. So I'm gonna add that, and I'm just gonna call it grass test. I select, no, I have to select it again. So I just open this asset up and it looks like this. So we don't really see a lot of stuff here, right? So what we can do is we can add an element and open this up. And now what you can see is we get like some settings here. And we have an empty container for the mesh. So what we can do, excuse me, I'll just take this grass for now. We click it and we drop it in here, and we have like some density and like some other stuff. I'm leaving that as the defaults right now. And I close that asset. Now what we need is we need the landscape material. So, and here we have a layer called grass. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna right click, we type grass, and then you get this node. It's called landscape grass output. And it's a funny node because it looks weird. It only has an input, but it has no output. So it basically is kind of like an extension to the main root node here. But for whatever reason, it's just a separate node. And so what we can do with this grass node is we can go in here in the grass types, we can open it up, and we can see we have one member here, which is this one input. And it's the name is grass, obviously, and the grass type is none. So what we can do is we can click this and we can use the grass test and put this in here. So far, nothing has really happened, and you can see down here, it's like saying the input is missing. So what we need to do is, when you paint these landscape layers, that data gets like saved into a texture and of where you painted something, and that texture, you can sample it as a mask. And how you do that is fairly easy. So we saw it in the shader already, but we can also look here under paint. So we can see we have muddy water, we have dirt, we have grass, and we have mud. So here we got this grass layer info as well. And so what we're going to do is we go back to our material, we right click, and we write landscape. And then there is a node that is called landscape layer sample. We take that one. It only has an output and it has no name. And now the cool thing is, it's actually super straightforward. The name is now none. The layer is called grass. So what we do is we just write grass, and now the sample node actually it kind of like it looks for the layers and it sees, okay, I am called grass and there's a layer called grass. So what I'm going to sample is the paint mask of that grass layer, which means the mask texture will be white everywhere where there is this layer painted, and it will be black everywhere where something else is painted. So now we can just like feed this one into here, and if I hit apply now, let's see what happens. So you can see it starts compiling the landscape material shaders. And I can already see it back there. Whoa, motion blur. Ha, so we can already see, hey, nice. We got this grass here. Right now, it's again lit dynamically. So we get like some issues here with the shading. I think I'm gonna break the shading of the grass to get a more painterly feel, because that's what we have with the stuff from Siemens Dahl and Haag. It's not super photoreal. It seems kind of photoreal, but I think it would actually help the scene quite a bit. So we just gonna do that as well. So now we're going back into this grass type here, and first of all we're gonna choose a better density. So you can see now this is like really, yeah, you can see it renders like everywhere. That's a lot of grass. And now you can see it starts lotting the grass away. So what we can do is we can just set the start cull distance to, let's say, 5,000, and this to 6,000. Like, no, that's... I never really, like, sometimes you never really know how these values actually work. Like, you know, is this like which one is like is it like a fade blend, or like what exactly happens? But it's not super important. So I think for performance reasons we're gonna do this, because like if we have our camera position here or here, yeah, let's choose 4,500 just to make sure we have grass in our view, but we like don't need it like all the way back there. I think I'm gonna increase the density again, because like for this scene right now we really want to have something lush like this, right? So that's fairly nice. Here you can see that kind of like, you know, here is like probably some breakup painted, which is why it's kind of like doing this. And if you want to get rid of these things, one thing that you can do is you can actually power the mask in the landscape shader. So if we just open that one up again quickly, so we're gonna take power node. So we increase the contrast of the mask slightly. I always like to work with parameters because it's just like the iteration speed is just so much better. So we say grass mask power or something like that. So the default is 2, and 1 is actually like the same as no power. So I always have my default value as 1, even though the default power value is 2, but that's already fairly strong. So if we have this here now and we increase the power, it should actually at some point. No. Okay, that is interesting. I actually did that with my mask stuff, but apparently it seems to not work nicely with the sample layer. Or let's try this. Let's try 5 and hit apply. Maybe it doesn't update because like it's a parameter, but it kind of like needs to recompile the shader for the rebuilding the grass mask. So let's see if that is doing the trick. Yeah, you can see now that it kind of like did it a lot more accurate. So that's good. What I'm going to do is I just go into the paint layer for grass, and I'm just gonna paint some more grass here to make sure that we don't have so much like holes here. Alright, cool. So now what we can do on the grass asset, if we scroll down, use landscape light map. This is a checkbox that we can use, and if we do that, it will project the lighting information from the terrain onto that grass here. But I think we need to rebuild the lighting because that doesn't look really good. So before we do that, let's check the lighting channels. That's all good. Okay. Before we do that, let's have a quick look at the grass material. Okay. That's actually a cool trick that she did here. So what I will try is I think I will quickly just get rid of the normals for this. So I'm going to deactivate tangent space normal. I'm going to use a vector 3 and blue is up, and I'm gonna put that into the normals. This kind of like gets rid of the normal map detail, but you can also later combine them. But why do we still get that black stuff here? I think this might be something happening from the ambient occlusion. Sorry, I just off screen got rid of the... Haha! So, now we're talking. So I just removed the ambient occlusion stuff because I think it was using the wrong... The problem is this gradient direction. It only works if your UVs are done in a certain way, and otherwise it kind of like can break. So I removed it. So this looks already fairly better. However, we do have some issues here with the... So I don't like when nothing is parameters. We take opacity. We got this one. What is... Okay. We blend this color here. That's the I honestly don't understand why we blend in this subsurface color like this. Okay. All right, so let's look at what we get here. So the opacity is kind of like some weird, like, thickness kind of thing. I'm also getting rid of this, and I just multiply those together. I'm not such a huge fan of these Photoshop functions. Subsurface color. I think they are not super cheap, and also, like, I think you're not always really getting the results from them that you want. So let's. Why am I getting subsurface down here? And okay, I need to clean this up. Whoops. So we got this for the base color, we got this, and if we have this value, then we just get this here, which is perfect. So I am actually slightly confused right now, but I think this might be the spec. So let's just quickly try out something. Sometimes this is like really weird. You get like incredible strong specularity on grass stuff, and in my experience, it just helps to hook that up and basically kind of like break PBR a little bit. Okay, so now we can see we get a lot less of that stuff. So now we can actually bring back some opacity here, and we can maybe also okay. Bring back some of the color slightly, maybe like this. And now I'm actually, since I fixed the ambient occlusion stuff, I will go back to just enable the tangent normal again and see how it looks now. So yeah, it's actually fairly okay. So now we do have quite a mismatch here between those colors. And let's have a look at this stuff here. I have actually never tried this hue shift, but let's see what happens if we put in 0.1. I didn't see a lot. Let's try 0.5. Huh. It doesn't really look like it's doing a lot, to be honest. Okay. So yeah, you can see grass is always a tricky thing. So how does this look? Where's my plane? Hello? Huh. So, okay. Yeah, this setup is wrong. Like that's not what you want to have, basically. Because now you can see we get like all these weird like gradients, and that's not really doing what Sarah, I guess, wanted. So what we need to do is we need to mask that off to get a linear gradient. So I think it was this one, yeah. So now you can already see it in the preview, right? So now we get this gradient, and we actually don't need to flip it. And what you actually want to do is like you kind of like want to have a bias scale to move this gradient up and down, kind of. So you can like tint the stuff at the bottom a bit. AO power. And now so what I do is basically I will use this for a lerp node. So I can also, sometimes you want to add that to the diffuse color slightly as well. And now here I basically flip the values to this. Because now I have the dark stuff at the bottom. Now, if we adjust this thing here, yeah, my exposure is like messing with me right now. So what we're gonna do is, like, just for the sake of visualizing this better, we're gonna multiply it with the base color. So, see how we actually can add this depth effect from the bottom. The biggest problem right now is just really, like, look at this. This already looks a lot nicer. So the biggest problem is actually that we don't really have matching colors right now. I believe that we would need to just quickly hop in here and let's see. I think it was that one, but I'm not sure. Let's just try that out for the sake of trying it. Zack. We're also fairly dark here now with the grass, so let's see what we can do with our values here. Okay, that looks more close. Okay, cool. So we have a better working grass already. And now what would be super important, because like you can see it looks pretty boring, everything looks like the same and so on. So what we would need to do is we would just need to add a couple of more grass types to generate some more variation so it doesn't all like look the same. What we can also do is in the grass type we can have the scaling on the z-axis. We can say like, yeah, we say minimum is 1 and maximum is like, let's say 1.8. And now we should actually this should update automatically. Okay, so now you can see that it's like trying to vary around here with all the grass between many different settings. Let's say 0.8. We have random rotation as well and so on and back and forth. So yeah, it would be really cool to like add different ones now as well. So, for example, what we can do is we can just like duplicate this one, open it up, and get like, for example, yeah, let's use this one for now. We can put it in. We can also just quickly go into our landscape material again and take the grass type here, and we just add a new one, which is like grass 02 or whatever, and I have the foliage type selected already out of the landscape layer, and I just add it in here and I click save. Oh yeah, of course it's the same input, so we like need to hook it up like this because it's all tied to the same layer. And what we also need to do is, because now we get this, and that actually also has a cool style, but it's not what we want. So we're gonna reduce the density to like, yeah, 50 maybe. 50 is not so bad. And we're gonna do the scaling from 0.5 to 1. And now we get kind of this. But so, yeah, you get the idea. This is like just, you know, we need to provide some more variation here. Cool. Alright, so now what I also really want to do is like, do you see what's happening all the time with the exposure and stuff? So I would really like, I think this looks nice. So I kind of like want to clamp the exposure and not like have it going like super high all the time here. And the best way to do this is like upping this value here. It's that 0.03. if we do like, let's go for like, let's go into the dark part here, something like this maybe, like in the shadow, so we can see like it raises that stuff up so much. So let's try 0.1, 0.2. Yo, that looks a lot better, I think. Kind of like this. So if we now go for the shots, we actually are quite a bit better. We might wanna go again into our grass material, and I just want to add a tiny little bit of desaturation here, just a tiny little bit, because I think we're a little bit too poppy here, and this might give us issues for the grading later on. So saturation. So 0 means that we don't desaturate the grass at all, and let's close this one down. Yeah, you can see it's like super saturated compared to all the other stuff. So now you can see that we actually are getting a problem with the subsurface color. So what we need to do is we need to hook up a second desaturation like this, and we just feed in the same value to make sure that they all work. So, and now you can see it looks super bad because I have this super high value. So let's just try this again. Yeah. Nope, that's a bit too much. Let's give it back some color. So because the cool thing is I actually I went to Simon Stalenhag's website and I tried to find some nice daylight shots from him actually, and I was fairly surprised because I was looking for green stuff, like not his like regular, like, you know, all the grass is just brown and dead, and what I actually found is this. So this is daylight. We can see we have quite some desaturated vegetation here, but if we just look at these images, like this one, that I was fairly surprised because like, holy, that's Simon Stalenhag, like those poppy colors. And yeah, so we do have some room to play with this, but I think I would like to get more towards something like this, maybe not as sunny. Like you can see this one is also sunny, but it's a little bit less harsh than this one. So I think we will try to go towards something like this here. We also got our nice spheres. So yeah, that's kind of like what I'm aiming for. I wanna check the fog as well. Just quickly here. And reduce it. And now I wanna search for this one. So here's my fog, alright? And I think something like this looks actually better. So now the interesting thing is the in-scattering. It's like we actually might wanna use something more a little bit warm for the in-scattering. Oh wait, no. Haha, I'm stupid. That's the, yeah. Yeah, this is the color that we want blue, and this one, the directional inscattering, that's the color where we want like something more like reflective of the sun color. You can of course bump the saturation, but you should be careful with that depending on how strong the fog settings are. All right. So just gonna check. This looks fairly good to me. However, I can also see that these colors are fairly, we use temperature, so we're getting this very like warm light, which is actually not too bad for this scene. I need to get rid of this fog sheet here. So, okay. I think we are in a fairly good shape. So let's check our shots. All right. So here, like this shot, I would definitely try to improve the lighting on the robot via the lighting channels, the way we did it. Because I think it would just add so much more to it to get like a few highlights and such. But what I also want to do is I want to add reflections here as well, just so. Can you see what like difference this is already like making here? So I will obviously bring this down to like 500. And I'm not going to bother too much about the other sides of the robot because we're not going to see it from those sides. So if we take the shot again, so you can see it gives us a better directionality, and at the same time we also like get some more accurate reflections on the bike and the stuff here. I also need to tweak this fog sheet again. Okay. Yep. All right. I actually really start to like this shot now. So this is, I think this is already looking fairly cool. And it would be cool to like add some more custom lights here and like, you know, work on the robot like we did for the night scene. But I honestly think it's also slowly, we're approaching the point where we should just like call it done. And I also got like already some many requests from people to work on new scenes. So what I'm going to do now is I could just quickly jump in here and I double check that all of that stuff looks good, which it does. I'm going to save the scene, and I'm going to trigger a production build, and yeah, I will pause the video here, so I'll be back once it's baked. So let's do that. And yeah. Yes, that's good. All right, so We'll be back in a couple of minutes, I guess. Alright, so we're back after baking this. We do get this in the message log, but we already know, like since from the last time, that we do have some models that have problems with the light maps. So yeah, we're just gonna ignore that for now. And yeah, so this is what we have here. Oh, I actually like that with the grass here. Yeah, so that is our final production quality bake for this scene. So I think there are still a few spots that could need some more manual love. But yeah, for the sake of wrapping this up, we're not going to do that. Like, for example, if we look at this entrance here, it is fairly dark. I think, like, there are multiple problems. Like, when I look at this looks to me like there's also some, like, UV issues here. So we're actually not getting a clean bake on some of these assets. I mean, some look good, but others are like, this looks a little bit wonky to me here. But yeah, I mean, we could potentially go in here and just, you know, fix that with some like fake lighting a little bit, just to brighten up that entrance area. But I think, yeah, we can fairly easily work with this now. I mean, we can like just super quickly take a point light here. Kind of like this maybe. And we turn off shadow casting for it. And then we just make it like a lot less intense. I will also try to give it some super subtle hint of color, so we don't break the immersion too much here. Something like this. And then a neat little trick is, like, you can see we get like the specular highlights here, and we don't necessarily want that for a light that we just use for as a fill light, basically. So what we can do is, there's this value here called min roughness. I think I talked about this value already. And what it does is, it kind of like treats this light as if every surface it would affect has a very high roughness value. And you can see when I start increasing that value, how the reflection of the light blurs out. And at 1, this becomes basically a fully diffuse light. I'm gonna move this a little bit away here, so we get like this nicer gradient. And again, I'm just like, you know, like, this is the original, and I think something like this, like maybe 50, you know, just something super subtle to brighten up that area. So if we just turn it on and off, we can see we get like a little bit more response here. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Maybe move it down a tiny little bit so we get some more on the floor as well. But yeah, that's how I would keep it for now. So if let's take this shot again. And oh, one thing. We just quickly go to the post volume, and we just make sure that nothing is interfering here, and that's great. So let's take this shot now. We do a high resolution screenshot. Okay. And now we can just go into Photoshop. And that's the shot that we have. I'm also going to open up my clean lookup texture. Whoa, that was stupid. Yep. Yep. Okay, so that's the clean lookup texture. And now I'm yeah, let's just like see what we can do here. I'm just gonna move my layers over, and I'm gonna have just a quick look at my reference here, so we can see like it's less saturated in certain aspects, and it's like slightly flatter than what we have here. So we're like just like trying to do some little adjustments here. I'm not gonna use the contrast curve right now because I think that we actually have like fairly decent contrast in the image. And normally I just start like fooling around and checking some things to see what I get. I don't want to have it too flat. Okay. So now we can also like fool around with like these sliders here. Like we can super slightly desaturate it, but we can try to add a little bit more like vibrance to it as well. I think it really helps with the readability of the scene. But I mean, all this post stuff, like a lot of it comes down to taste as well. So there is no real like rule on these things. I think I said it the last time, but I also like working with the photo filter a lot. But you have to be careful, especially if you don't want to like break the blue values, for example. So if we just like scroll down here and you see like now this makes it feel very cold. So it's a little bit tricky where you want to access the colors actually, and how you like override certain colors. But I think that something slightly yellowish is actually not too bad for this scene, just to give it this sort of like feel. Yep. And if we just check it, I actually I like the warmth that we get from it. So I think this is actually fairly nice. I also like to work with the color balance, since it really allows me to have a better control on where my tweaks are going to be happening. And like mostly I'm really like just trying to see where happens what. I think because I want to get a little bit of blue back into the sky. Like it's quite yellow, but I also don't want to make it too cold again. So I'm trying to get the highlights, since I know that the sky is like fairly bright compared to the other stuff. And if we look into the shadows here, we notice that when we look at the Stalenhag stuff, there's a lot of brown in the shadows. So what we can do is we can like try to shift the shadows a little bit towards red and add some yellow a little bit, just so we can kind of like go more towards that like slightly autumn feeling, which we have here. If we just look at the trees, so we definitely want something that's a little bit more reddish than greenish. And that's what we get from the adjustment. I think that really nicely balances out the other stuff, because without it, it looks like we have like this green-yellow filter, I mean, which we do. So with this, we can just like slightly cancel that out a bit. So if I just move that away quickly, and we look at this versus this, I would say that that is a fairly good improvement here. Yeah, I actually like that quite a lot. I will, however, look quickly at the vibrance again, and I will just like slightly drag down the saturation a tiny little bit more, just so, you know, I'm just like trying to see where that click is, basically, of like, that's too much and that's not good anymore. I think I prefer -13 over -7. Yeah. Okay, so this is like really, that's just a super quick grade, but as you can see, I think it really helps to make the image come alive. Okay, so what we're gonna do again is I have all my layers here. I'm gonna drag this out so we can actually get the lookup texture. I'll just drag them over onto the lookup texture, and I'm gonna save this one out as a PNG, and I call it grading test 2. And let's go into our post volume and get the texture in. I actually don't remember where I put it. Did I put it here? Yeah. Texture, color grading, so import grading test 02. Of course, we need to set the correct settings again, because you can see these compression artifacts here. So we set this to color lookup table, and we're good to go. And I have this selected here, so I can just enable that and swoop. There we go. So you can see it's quite a nice little setup like this, actually. And of course, we could now go in here again, like I said in the beginning, and just, you know, do some nice little like highlighting on certain parts of the mech, preferably with spotlights and not point lights, but you know, you get the idea. So there's some potential here of like adding some little more highlights. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, that's what we have now for the scene. So it's our first shot. That's the main shot with the robot. And we have this other perspective. That's just a slightly twisted version here. But yeah. So, alright. This actually wraps it up for this scene. I hope you had a good time following up with the tutorial, and hope you guys were able to take something away from it. And I'm not yet entirely sure what the next one will be, actually, but I do have a couple of people that have scenes in the pipeline. And I think like what we will do is, like, the next time I will try to get something that is more interior style, like whatever that means, you know, like it could be like some nice building or like some sci-fi facility or whatever. Like doesn't matter so much, but like I really want to do some interior stuff for you guys as well. And yeah. So with that said, that wraps it up. Have a super good time, guys, and yeah, let's see what we can do for the next sessions. All right, take care. Bye bye.